Hello everybody. My name's Christabel and I'd love to warmly welcome you to the free talk today. And first I just want to say thank you for coming and put on the table. This is my first sort of talk on stage for people. Here in Ubud we just sit in circles on pillows and hang out. So I'm feeling a little vulnerable and I'm feeling grateful that you're here for me and with me. So thank you.
We're all grateful you're here too, Christabel.
I love you. So today I wanted to share with you about something that I'm so passionate about. It brings my heart so much joy, and it's called Breath of Bliss. And I named this topic Open Your Heart because really the reason why I created Breath of Bliss has to do with opening the heart. And so this was recently published in Forbes magazine, this quote: "Chronic loneliness is a modern day epidemic." 75% of people in the United States say that they feel sad or lonely at least one day of the week. And the National Science Foundation recently did a study where they found that 25% of the people in the United States actually feel they don't have anybody that they can call and talk to when they want a meaningful connection or when they have a victory that they want to celebrate with somebody else. And if you take that same group of people and actually take into account that for 25% more, the only people they could talk to are their closest family, the number goes up to 50%. So let's just pause with this for a moment and take a breath. 50% of the people in the United States feel they have no one they can talk to. This is a big deal. And so when we suffer from loneliness or feeling isolated, we can have all kinds of health issues arise. We can have weakened immune systems. We can suffer from heart issues. We can actually have the same health impacts occur to us as if we were smoking 15 cigarettes a day or suffering from obesity or even alcoholism. So this is big. This idea of being lonely is worth paying attention to. And here's another startling fact, which has led to a lot of publication on the topic of loneliness lately. People who label themselves lonely die 26% faster than everyone else. So this is worth us all pausing and paying attention to. There's really a crisis of connection going on the entire planet. And even though we're so connected in social media, and we can feel this immediacy of being able to reach out to people, the depth of that connection isn't happening. And so I created Breath of Bliss because I suffer from this crisis. Does anyone else feel that they're impacted by this? Yeah, I definitely am hungry for connection. And so I actually started experiencing this just when I was a little girl. And this is me here. Sorry, it's a little out of focus. And I want to share a little story with you. Actually, I want to share two stories with you to understand a little bit more about who I am and why I even created this. So when I was exactly this age, I was walking up the stairs with my father one day at home. And I stopped him on the stairs and I said, "Daddy, if you're black and mommy's white, what am I?" And my dad crouched down next to me. He got down next to me, he took me by my little shoulders, and he looked me right in the eyes. And my dad had these big horn-rimmed glasses. He was a university professor, and tight, kinky hair, and really dark, rich chocolate skin. And he said, "Christabel, you're white." And I remember my face getting really tangled up and feeling really confused, but he looked so stern that I felt, oh, something's wrong with me asking a question about this. So I just nodded my head and I said, okay, Daddy, I'm white. And that one experience impacted my life in massive ways. It was the first of many experiences where I started doubting myself and thinking that my emotions were leading me astray. And so I started stuffing and suppressing my emotions and learning to mistrust them, and instead to outsource my authority to people outside of me, especially men, you know? And so that was really the beginning of my crisis of connection, and it continued even when I was in high school. I was in all-girls Catholic high school, and we had these brown and yellow plaid skirts and tight starched Oxfords and patent leather shoes and little bows in our hair. And one day a week, we were allowed to not wear uniforms. And this was a very affluent school. We didn't have much money. And around the schoolyard, all of the kids used to gather around me on these days off, and they would circle around like this, all around me, and they'd start chanting, Kmart kid, Kmart kid, Kmart kid. And I remember the bottom of my stomach falling out and feeling something is definitely wrong with me. I'm not like the other kids. I'm different and something's wrong. And so this again reinforced these, beliefs and experiences as a child that somehow I didn't fit into the collective, that I didn't belong. So I'm just curious if you're with me up until now. Have any of you ever felt when you were, as a kid, were you ever teased or left out? Yeah, most of us, right? Have any of you ever wanted to reach out and share something meaningful with a friend and not known who you could call? And have you ever just felt desperate to belong to some group of people? Take a look around at each other, because you know what? Almost everyone has been raising their hand to at least one of these questions. And so let's take a few breaths just to come into the body, feel everything. Just tracking your experience, noticing if you have anything arising. It's really good to just pause when we do something like this and presence what's here. And so this is all part of why I created Breath of Bliss. And it's worth noting that the heart is the very first organ to form in our body when we're in mama's womb. Before the nervous system even forms, the heart comes first. And the heart is ruled by this primordial instinctual wisdom that is wordless from that age and that we carry with us now. And so in the last 20 years, I've really devoted my life to finding solutions for my own problem of connection, right? I wasn't really looking for other people to solve it. I figured, well, I might as well go out and try to create something. So I went to graduate school in anthropology. I went to Africa. I studied trance drumming and ritual and dance in Senegal. And I went to Pacifica Graduate Institute. I studied depth psychology. I was caught up in the Jungian unconscious and archetypes and symbols. And I was looking for connection to the soul. And went on, I studied breathwork and life coaching and tantra and shamanism in Peru, psychotherapy, received countless sessions, somatic experiencing. I was looking everywhere to kind of find what would be the most helpful tools to help me come back into myself, back into my heart. Because what I started realizing while I was doing this work is that it wasn't about loneliness, wasn't about having a heart that was open or closed. Our hearts are always open. Our hearts are always available and in us and wise and waiting to talk to us. It was really about whether I left myself or not, whether I chronically abandoned myself because of other people's thoughts and opinions, or if I could actually stay in my truth and in my alignment. And when I could, stay in the midline and pause and breathe and feel, then I was able to feel my heart. And so I did all kinds of things. I led breathworks in Costa Rica. I loved teaching at transformational festivals. This was at Envision, and for a while I led many women's retreats in Kauai, the Mermaid Retreat, and all kinds of co-ed intimacy circles. And I started assembling all these practices around the breathwork, because for me, when I first discovered breathwork, it by far blew out of the water any other transformational modality I had experienced. And this is a picture of me. This is actually in Costa Rica at one of my breathwork trainings. And I want to tell you a little bit about this, my first experience with breathwork. It was in Oakland, California, at a workshop that was on a different topic. And the facilitator said, I'm going to surprise you with something, and it's called breathwork. So lie down, close your eyes, open your mouth, and begin taking some deep, circular, connected breaths. So let's all do that together, just so you can kind of travel back in time with me to that memory. So open your mouth. You can give it a little massage. Make a sound. Don't be shy. And what we're going to do is we're going to take these ripe, passionate, pregnant inhales, and we're going to flow it right into the exhale so it's connected. Ooh. And just pause for a moment and notice how you feel. Yeah, so just noticing. Does anyone want to call out a word about how you might feel any sensations in the room?
Lightheaded.
Lightheaded, yeah.
Tingly.
Tingly.
Refreshed.
Yeah, refreshed.
Expected.
Yeah, so this is kind of what I was feeling times 1,000 in that first experience, because we did it for an hour. And there was music, powerful music happening, and spoken guidance by the woman. And what happened to me was, at first my hands started getting really, really tight and crampy and tingly, and I got afraid. And then she told me to relax, keep going with it, open. So I kept breathing through that place. And then all of a sudden, I experienced this feeling of unconditional love that was unlike anything else I've experienced in my life. It was like this tidal wave of light and color, and this feeling of, I actually imagine what happens when you die. It was like that epic level of overwhelm and these surges of connection to my family, to people I hadn't talked to in years, just totally overwhelming love. And then I was suddenly in this meadow, and I felt these beings talking to me through my imagination. And it was this luscious garden, and there were these colors, and something told me, this is the truth of who you are. And it was so beautiful that I just started crying and weeping and weeping. Because at that time, I was actually married, and I was in a very unhappy marriage to an international DJ, and we had amazing times towards the beginning, but our values had started diverging. And so by this time, I felt completely out of alignment, but also disconnected from myself and my emotions, so I couldn't quite leave, and I couldn't quite articulate. After this first breath work that I had the courage to end that marriage and to start designing a life that was totally in alignment with who I was, and to move to exotic locations that started nourishing my soul. So I gobbled up all of the breath work I could study. I studied with these teachers, and they were Dana DeLong and Ashana Solaris of Clarity Breathwork, and that's in the rebirthing lineage. And then I just devoured all the trainings I could until finally I'd reached the end, and it was one-on-one treatment for child trauma, birthing trauma, which couldn't really take me to this other place I wanted to go to. So they encouraged me to go ahead and create Breath of Bliss, and that's how it happened. So let's talk about the breath. Kind of an intense picture, right?
Yes.
So this picture is actually historically labeled the perfect birth. I hope it's not just me that finds this disturbing. So when we are babies and we are in mama's womb, her body is an extension of our body. Her body's like the outer sheath of our body. So her emotions and her feelings, her intuition, everything about mom is imprinted on us when we're these tender, vulnerable beings who've just come from the beyond of the galaxy into a body. And when we come out and we experience a birth, which most people, is anyone born in a hospital here? Is it? Almost every single person. So this is pretty much what happens in a hospital. Baby is taken out, swung upside down, slapped on the bottom as their first experience of bonding, or lack thereof. And what happens is the first response is this. Before the crying comes, there's a contraction. The body gets tight. And so the first pre-verbal memory we have of how to respond to stress and pain is getting tight, holding it in, holding the breath. And it continues in childhood, because guess what? When we're little tiny kids like this tall, we can't fight back. And we can't run away because we rely on our parents to take care of all our needs. So the only way that a lot of us can escape is to make ourselves small and hold in our emotions and contract. So breath work is amazing. And it's not just if you're unraveling childhood trauma, but if you're really looking at unwinding any chronically held belief in your body. Breath work floods you with life force energy. It helps merge your conscious and your unconscious. And this is a picture here in one of the festivals we've taught at here in Bali Spirit Festival. And you can see this person getting coached by one of our trainers and encouraged to bring in even more oxygen to the body. And so a number of really fascinating things happen to the brain when we do breath work. First of all, the entire brain is hyperstimulated, which means that any separations or lack of communication between the parts gets remedied. And this starts in the reptilian brain, and that houses the storehouse of our memories, and it happens in the amygdala. So that amygdala, and it's worth paying attention to this, everyone. I'm so serious, because the amygdala holds all of your pre-conscious memories. It holds all of, any of you who ever feel your childhood was foggy, or there was something hard to remember, maybe you had a hazy childhood, it's all there in the amygdala. Anything you can't consciously remember, it's there. And then the mammal brain that we have has something called the insula in it. And the insula is the center of all of our emotions. All of our feelings get processed through there, right? And the neocortex is in charge of our higher order thinking and our decision making. So neuroscientists have found that when we are a little kid or a child and we experience some kind of trauma, and some part of us makes a decision around that. We decide about what's safe and what's not safe. And so we start creating a belief that we reinforce over time by different actions. And you're actually creating a little shortcut in your brain. Your brain actually builds a new neural pathway, and it coats it with protein to keep it safe and inflexible. So as we age, it's just totally natural to have these little points of connection that are making shortcuts through your brain. But what happens with breath work is that it starts hyper-arousing your entire brain. And your conscious memory in your neocortex starts allowing you to access memories before that had been foggy from your amygdala, things that were hazy, that you didn't understand. It starts bringing them into extreme clarity and vividness. And then when it activates your mammal brain, all of your emotions that have been held inside have this freedom to flow. And so the end result is that you have the ability in breath work to start building a brand new pattern for yourself. You can actually dissolve these habitual shortcuts in your brain and be empowered to create new decisions for yourself. And you gain this brand new perspective on life. Here's the yummy stuff. So, dimethyltryptamine. Does everyone know what dimethyltryptamine is? Oh, a lot of you. Some of you not. Okay, so dimethyltryptamine is the same as the active ingredient in the Amazonian vision vine named ayahuasca. It's also found in LSD. And dimethyltryptamine is produced by our pineal gland in the brain when we do breath work. And so this is great because what it does is it opens up altered states of consciousness. So if you're somebody who typically stays in your head and you're judgmental or you criticize a lot or you just have problems with self-acceptance or feeling connected to other people, right? When you start doing breath work and you activate that DMT and you start gaining this access to other states of consciousness, collective society dissolves. Everything you thought you knew dissolves. And all of a sudden, you have these extraordinary and fantastical visions. It's possible. Some people are visual, some people are auditory. It's different for everyone, but you start having these extraordinary experiences where you can start building nervous system coherence. All of a sudden, you're given this opportunity to have extraordinary connections and insights. And some other fun things happen too. So when we combine in Breath of Bliss the breath work with other practices to create a ceremony of love by adding heart-sharing practices and ecstatic dance and touch and all these other things, we start releasing all the pleasure and happiness chemicals in our body, dopamine, endorphins, oxytocin, serotonin. These are all the yum chemicals. Yeah? So I wanted to share all that with you just to give you a sense of connection. Like, why am I even creating Breath of Bliss? What am I doing training, dozens and hundreds of people and teaching this? I'm doing this from my heart because I feel like, wow, the more people gain access to this altered states of consciousness and this midline within themselves and ability to stay within instead of outsourcing authority, the more we can be in our bodies and pause and feel, the more connected we can be. And so I recently did some really interesting work here in Ubud with Zen Brain Labs. Anyone heard of Zen Brain Lab? Just a few of you. Okay. Well, Zen Brain Lab has some really modern, cutting-edge technological equipment for Ubud that allows them to actually map the human brain and determine the impact of different mindfulness practices on the actual physiology. So I recently created an online course, my very first online course, and it's called Feel More Ecstasy. And I thought, some people might start attacking me for this. They might start poking and prodding and think, oh, this is another Ubud woo-woo thing, right? So I felt like I better take this to the bank and really see, like, is this going to perform? And can it really benefit people? So I got a group of 3 people together, a physicist, a psychotherapist, and a marketing expert who all agreed to go into this test. And for 10 days, they did the entire practice, which included ecstatic dance, heart-sharing practice, and an hour-long breath work. And guess what? It had a really big impact on their brains. It was hugely significant. In fact, Dr. Danny said that those kinds of results were only typical for meditators who practiced for weeks and months at a time. And specifically, what we found were these things, that there were promising shifts in brain signatures associated with symptoms of inhibition, disconnection, withdrawal, anxiety, anxiousness, worry, chronic fatigue, depression, low mood, low libido, and other chronic health conditions. This is a big deal. Now, this kind of work hasn't really been put out about breath work. And so overall, it's just been really profound. I've had thousands of testimonials and thousands of experiences with students. And of course, this is so nourishing to receive, but to also have the validation of science, and to hear that Breath of Bliss and breathwork in general is creating heart coherence is good news. And that's kind of why I'm so passionate to share it with everybody. And so in our ceremonies, we have these parts: eye gazing, intention setting, there's a theme, movement, heart share, touching. And it isn't until we've done all of these preparatory things that we get to the hour-long breath work. And that's what makes it different than all the other breathwork practices. We have all of these tantric, shamanic, somatic heart-opening practices. Then we have an integration afterwards. So I'm going to invite you to find someone in the room that you'd be willing to have an experience with. So just go ahead, and maybe someone you don't know if you came with somebody. Find someone you don't know. So the first piece of the Breath of Bliss experience is eye gazing. So go ahead. If you don't have a partner, raise your hand so you can be found. Does everyone have a partner? You three. You have a group of three. Okay, great. If anyone needs a partner, there's one more person in the back. Yeah. So I want to invite you to go ahead and stand facing this person, heart to heart, and see how it feels to loosen your jaw and start taking those deep, circular, connected breaths. What I invite you to do is to make eye contact with them. Now, we're going to discover what happens when you start breathing with another person and the space between you. Just notice any sensations that arise, any thoughts. Yeah, you can be my partner. Yeah, and if you want to take each other's hands, you can, or you can just face each other. Maybe let a little sound out on the exhale. And as you gaze at this person, see if you can drop your eye gaze from your head into your heart. So you're actually looking from the eyes of your heart. Just notice if there's any urge to socially smile, and see if you can relax your face. Can you allow yourself to be fully seen by this person? Just tracking if there's thoughts, just letting them be like another sound in the environment. Just 3 more breaths with them. Just notice how you feel. And as you complete, you can just thank them for having this very short moment with you. Thank you. Thank you. And I invite you to just take a moment with your partner now and just share, what did you experience in just these few moments together? What did you experience?
I feel like whenever I look at somebody's eyes, it's like looking into a planet or something. There was self-consciousness. I did feel tense in the beginning but actually then it's kind of okay, and just a little bit of relaxation.
Beautiful. Thank you. Me too.
Good. Yeah. Cool.
Okay, everybody. So pausing now on your share. Does anyone want to contribute to the group any noticings that you had just in these 1 minute of eye gazing? Yep. You found it intimate. Yeah. How was intimacy for you? What's that? It's a bit awkward. Yeah. But eventually, yeah. Anybody else?
There was a sense of innocence from within me and within her that I was able to experience. Just this childlikeness.
Childlike innocence. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, Galen.
Well, with the minute you said drop it to your heart, this emotion just, like my heart just went, and tears just came.
Oh.
And it felt So good that that was that close to the edge.
Tears.
It was that accessible.
Emotions and tears. Yeah. So it's amazing. It's such a simple practice. Yeah, it's so simple and yet so deep. And so when we do ceremonies, we do that for a lot longer, actually. And we do it in groups, sometimes very, very large groups. And so that's a little taste of what these eye-gazing experiences are. And you can imagine it's really different when we have a group that's big. Yeah. And so when we have bigger groups, we generally have a softer gaze with smaller groups to have that same kind of connection. And so I want you to find a new partner, if you're willing now. I'm going to give you a micro taste of the next piece of Breath of Bliss, which is setting an intention. So find a new friend. Introduce yourself. See, we're already making connections here in the presentation. Yeah. Okay. And so with your new friend, we're going to have the shorter-haired person go first. And what happens here is we normally do this in a giant group with everybody listening to one person, but this will be better for our time. So when we share an intention at the beginning of this ceremony, it really helps crystallize our awareness and our focus so we can actually elicit and receive the experience we want and why we're there. Sometimes we arrive to things we don't even know how or why we got there or what we want, and guess what? We don't know how or what we got by the end. And so I invite you now to take a moment and share with this person your name and one word about how you want to feel by the end of this presentation. And when you share that word, I want to encourage you to make a sound or a movement, and then your friend is going to mimic that back to you. And why the heck am I asking you to do this? Because as humans from childhood, we want to feel safe. And one of the ways we can feel safe is by entraining our nervous systems. And so when we have a sound or a movement that we make reflected back to us by someone, it allows us to feel intensely held and validated. Yeah, so this is why we're doing this. So go ahead, shorter hair person, you'll start, and just have fun with it. And then switch when you're done. And if anyone needs a partner, I'm up here. So one word and then a sound or a movement, and your friend's going to copy that sound or movement. Yeah, I see some good ones. I see this one. I see this one. And this one. And then switch. If you haven't switched yet, give your partner a time. And when you're done, go ahead and look up at me so I know that you're complete, each sharing an intention. All right, everyone's done? All right, perfect. How do you feel just from that one moment of sharing an intention? Awesome. Yeah? Calm, happy, great. Okay, so already, I don't know if you're noticing, but we're building those social bonds together. We're already getting ready for the breath work. This is a dear friend of mine, Chris, at one of the ceremonies at a festival holding the field. And so the next thing we do in ceremonies is there's what I call dharma. It's a talk. You already had to deal with me talking for about 35 minutes, so I'm not going to do that again for you. But we have a short talk in the ceremonies. It's about 5 minutes, and it's usually something about opening the heart or accessing vulnerability, or it's a somatic skill about how to come back to midline or how to feel your emotions, things like that. You're going to like the next bit. It's the movement. Yeah? So I'm just going to ask all of you right now to really feel your feet in contact with the floor and alternate your feet so that your hips start swaying left and right. And release your jaw and begin again with those deep circular connected breaths. And just let the rest of your body go, your head and your arms, just enjoying yourself. Letting your body seek pleasure as you breathe. Maybe making a sound on the exhale. Yeah, just feeling your body. We get a lot more vigorous, as you can see with this photo here, but I'm not going to take you there right now. things get a little ecstatic. And we have all kinds of movement practices, ecstatic shaking and vibrating and all kinds of activation. And then we start creating the connections again. So I want to invite you to find a new partner for our last experience here. And with your partner, we're going to just have a 1-minute share for each of you. This is one of the practices along with dance that was tested at the Zen Brain Lab in terms of its impact on the human brain. And so a heart share is this moment where you get the opportunity to be heard by an absolute stranger at times and to speak from your heart. So go ahead and look at each other if you're willing, and you can put your hands on your heart. Take some breaths, just witness this beautiful being before you. And the person with the longer hair is going to go first. You can decide who that is. And I'm going to give you a cue of when to stop, but for now, I'm going to invite the longer-haired person to just be in total trust that you're held right now, right? So just stay in your breath, feel your heart, feel your feet on the earth, feel the sky above. Yeah? And I would like to ask you to begin every sentence with this phrase, and you can close your eyes while you speak quietly. What my heart wants is. What my heart wants is. Yeah, let's just see what happens there for a minute. Just dipping in. And just coming towards completion just for now, just for our little toe in the dip of the water. Just coming into completion now and taking a breath together. Just noticing, yeah, and opening your eyes if they've been closed and nodding to your partner in thanks for hearing you. If you're willing to do that, just giving that little thanks. And now we're going to switch, and we're going to allow the other person to speak just for a minute. We're just touching in. This lasts usually 5 to 10 minutes normally, but we're just seeing how does this feel. And shorter-haired person, beginning now, what my heart wants is. And when you're complete sharing a hug, just going ahead and thanking your partner for this time, sharing a sweet hug. And when you hug, take a breath. Yeah, just notice if you're in the A-frame hug, or if you can really bring your hearts together and take a nice deep breath, receive some support. Yeah, and when you're done, you can come back and sit down for the end of our presentation. I feel all the oxytocin in the room from here. Can you feel all those pleasure chemicals? And it's so good. Yeah. Thank you, everybody. Come on, sit down. Yeah? So how was that? We did under 5 minutes of practices. Anybody? Vulnerable. Yeah. Anybody else? Real.
Safe.
Say again?
Safe.
Safe.
Beautiful.
Beautiful. And that was less than 5 minutes. So imagine about an hour of these practices before you even lie down to breathe. And that brings us all the way back to the topic, opening your heart with Breath of Bliss. It's really about creating connection, oh, tears, connection with yourself, right? Like Eric here in this picture at Bali Spirit. Because the truth is we can't ever feel lonely if we slow down our nervous system and create the time to create coherence in our heart. First by connecting to ourselves and then connecting to other people. And that's really what I love sharing in Breath of Bliss. And I've had the privilege of witnessing so many beautiful connections happen. And we always have an altar in the center as well to just bring in the power of visionary art and beauty to awaken the soul and bring us out of the mind, you know, this beautiful but busy mind, and into the heart. And that's the actual breathwork ceremony we had just this last year at Bali Spirit when we were lying down. And we have a lot of incredible space holders who offer energy healing and touch and resourcing to help people really let go of the things they've been holding on to. And that support can be physical touch or just energetic. And it's an extraordinary interest of mine, this idea of holding space. What does it mean? You know, and that's really what we do in the teacher training for Breath of Bliss, is we start first learning how to hold space for our own hearts, our own little one, our own emotions, our own history and memories and all of that. And really, it's by learning to hold space for ourselves that we have the bandwidth and capacity to hold other people. We also have sound healing, drums and other things. And every now and then we get a baby, which is always so fun. So I just want to complete with the ceremony with probably the most important part. And this is something that I found severely lacking in so many other breathwork experiences, which is integration. So many times, especially even in a place like Ubud, we have these very activating experiences of transformation that can throw us into a state of hyper-arousal. And then what happens? We end up on the sidewalk trying to make sense of everything, and we just go to the next workshop without really taking the time to bring it in and make sense of it. And so integration is a central aspect of the completion, and we have support through physical touch, through spoken sharing, through puppy pile meditation, which is so nice. And yeah, just time to really connect and hang out with people afterwards. And of course, we have a giant crew of angels. The angels are central to everything. So in completion, I just wanted to share a quick 2-minute video, if you're willing. We're a few minutes over, but I wanted to show you a video so you could actually feel a little more what it's like to be in the ceremony.
My wish for you is that this experience can expand your bandwidth of comfort in life so that you can clear the debris out of your system and give and receive more love. You have support up underneath you to rise up from this place and this moment. So take a couple deep breaths. My heart, I love you. My body, I love you. My mind, I love you. generous beings, thank you so much for being here and for bringing yourself and really going for this breath, connecting to others and really trusting that it's safe to let down the walls and reveal who you really are.
So thank you for being with me and sharing this experience. And I'd love to just leave you with this idea to hold space for your own heart, to start prioritizing that and finding time every day that you can deepen your ability to know what you're feeling and what you need. It's totally natural to have feelings and needs. So that way you can connect with people authentically. So thank you, everybody. So grateful.